Welcome back to NYSE TV Live. San Francisco-based NOETIK is bringing a new tool to the fight against cancer. That's artificial intelligence. The company's here at the stock exchange as part of Decoding Bio's annual AI Bio Summit, co-hosted by the stock exchange. And joining me now with more is Alfa, NOETIK co-founder and CEO. Ron, welcome.
Thanks, Kristen. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to welcome you here to the stock exchange. I know you got a big day in store. What are you hoping to take away from today's summit?
Yeah, this is a great opportunity for a lot of companies in the technology-enabled drug discovery space to get to know each other, see what's going on, connect. Every year we get together here in New York, and there is a lot of great work happening. So really excited to meet folks and come together.
And what should our viewers know about your company, NOETIK?
So NOETIK is very focused on cancer, and in particular, the problem that we are targeting is which drugs work in which patients. So a lot of AI-enabled drug discovery companies are focused on the problem of how do we design a better molecule. But most drugs actually fail in the clinic because we don't know which drugs are going to work in which patients. So really what we're doing is training foundation models of virtual cells, so really simulating cell biology from human data in order to understand which drugs are going to work in which sets of patients, and hopefully increase the probability of success for cancer drugs in the clinic.
How does artificial intelligence play into this?
Yeah, so what we face in biology today is an enormous amount of data. So you could think of historically what we've done is try to reduce the problem of understanding biology to smaller and smaller parts. But now we're at a point where we can look at everything from the tissue to the cell to the genome. How do we bring all of this data together?
Yeah.
And so artificial intelligence is really a tool that enables us to bring all of this data together and begin to decode sort of the complexity of biology and the complexity of patient biology. So really we are relying on these models to help us understand how patients are similar to each other and which drugs are going to work in those patients, and how patients are different from each other and which drugs to differentiate across those.
What has the data showed you so far?
Yeah, so first of all, what is the data? So since founding the company, we have focused on generating the data ourselves. So we've brought human tumor samples into our labs and then processed those into one of the world's largest data stacks that's essentially, again, profiling tumors from the tissue all the way down to the genome. So far, we've already begun to see evidence that the models can understand fundamental principles of cancer biology that enable us to see which drugs work in which patients. So for example, for known drugs such as immune checkpoint inhibitors, the models have identified features of tumors that predict response. And so that's a really nice starting point, because we already know some clues about which patients these drugs work in, and the models are finding that in an independent way. So what that means is we can go from that one example to hopefully other examples where drugs that haven't been developed, haven't been approved, where we can identify patient populations that are likely to benefit.
What specific immunotherapies is your company NOETIK working on?
Yeah, so we're looking at a lot of different targets and molecules to potentially enter our pipeline. We have not announced any specific molecules yet, but stay tuned. There's a lot of great work happening, and we have some pretty interesting insights from the models already.
What are your goals for the rest of the year?
Yeah, for the rest of the year, we're really focused on really two questions. So, one, we just announced a very exciting partnership with a company called Agenus. So Agenus has clinical stage therapy that they've dosed in over 1,000 patients. We're helping them to identify which patients are likely to benefit. So very excited about that partnership, and excited to really demonstrate the power of the platform in the context of other partnerships. And then internally, we are looking at using the models to identify insights around molecules that we can bring in and develop ourselves. So a large percentage of our time internally is bringing in data sets that allow us to assess whether particular therapeutic targets are going to benefit certain patients, and then really go after those targets.
I know you mentioned earlier too, obviously you're here on site for the annual AI Biotech Summit, and you mentioned speaking with other industry leaders and colleagues, of course, to talk about the matters most important to our society today. What are the big themes, the topics of conversation that the biotech community is looking at right now?
Yeah, there are a lot of different topics that we're talking. So one of the things I'm hosting is a session on what can we do, today, or what will we be able to do in 5 years that we can't do today? And so, thinking about innovation, the types of models. There's a session on virtual cell biology. We are, hosting a lot of different topics around, sort of AI and bio. I think there are some other interesting topics just generally of interest to the biotech community. So, one of the big topics that we're going around is, innovation in China and Asian companies developing, molecules very quickly. That's very interesting for a lot of folks because, technology is being used to accelerate drug discovery in terms of molecule design. And we're seeing that a lot of companies in Asia are able to move relatively quickly, maybe even without a lot of that technology. So, our thesis as a company at NOETIK is that fundamentally we are still going to hit that bottleneck of clinical development, and so we've been focused on how do we increase that probability of success.
All right, Ron Alfa, he's NOETIK's co-founder and CEO, on site here at the Stock Exchange for the annual AI Biotech Summit. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much.